The Galactic Council chamber hung in the endless dark between stars, a perfect sphere of shimmering alloy that pulsed with soft violet light. Inside, silence ruled until it didn't. Captain Elias Varric stood alone on the obsidian dais at the center of the chamber. Around him, tier after tier of alien delegates watched from their high seats. Some had eyes that glowed like embers. Others had no eyes at all, sensing him through vibrations in the air. Their species came from worlds older than Earth, from galaxies humanity had only dreamed of. Together, they formed the Sovereign Concord, the most powerful governing body in the known universe. And today, they had come to judge humanity. Elias wore no armor, no weapon, not even a badge of rank. Just a plain black uniform, slightly wrinkled from weeks in cryosleep. His hands were empty. His posture was calm, but his mind raced like a storm. The Concord had summoned Earth after detecting strange energy spikes near Jupiter, pulses from humanity's quantum resonance experiments. To the aliens, it was a sign of dangerous instability. In their records, any species that played with quantum fields before achieving harmonic unity was a threat. And threats in the Concord's view were to be neutralized. The verdict had already been written. Quarantine Earth. Pacify its population with neural dampeners. Erase its history. Turn humans into quiet, obedient workers in the galactic machine. Standard procedure. But Elias wasn't here to accept judgment. High Arbiter Velnus, a tall being with skin like polished obsidian and voice like grinding stone, leaned forward from the highest tier. "Human envoy," it boomed, its words translated instantly by the chamber's ambient field. "You stand before the gathered wisdom of 10,000 cycles. Speak your final plea before sentence is carried out." Elias didn't flinch. He looked up, not with fear, but with quiet focus. "I'm not here to plead," he said, his voice clear and steady. "I'm here to deliver a message." A ripple of confusion passed through the chamber. The Cathari delegate, a spindly creature with 6 arms, hissed in disbelief. "A message? You dare bring a message to your execution?" Elias reached into his pocket. Not for a weapon. Not for a data chip. Just a small silver disc no bigger than a coin. He placed it gently on the dais. It hummed to life. A beam of light shot upward, forming a hologram that filled the center of the chamber. Not of Earth, not of human leaders, but of faces, thousands of them. Men, women, children, soldiers, farmers, scientists, artists, all human. All staring directly into the chamber, as if they could see the alien judges watching them. Then a voice spoke. Not one voice, millions. Layered together in perfect sync, calm but firm, echoing from every human colony in the Sol system. From Luna to Titan, from Mars to the orbital rings around Neptune. "You have 72 hours to evacuate all non-human assets from our sphere of influence," the voice said. "After that, we consider your presence an act of war. And humanity does not lose wars. We end them." The chamber exploded. Delegates shouted in a dozen languages. The Cathari slammed its fist on the railing. The gelatinous Xylos representative rippled with alarm. Even the usually unreadable Velnari arbiter stiffened, its obsidian skin flickering with faint red lines, signs of shock. "This is madness," cried a blue-skinned diplomat from the Helian Collective. "You are one planet. We command fleets that span galaxies." Elias just stood there watching them unravel, because the message wasn't just words, it was a signal. And while the conquered argued, humanity had already moved. On the far side of the solar system, hidden behind the rings of Saturn, the stealth frigate Raven powered up its drive. Its mission: disable the Concord's long-range surveillance buoy near Pluto. On Mars, engineers rerouted power from civilian grids to hidden defense arrays buried beneath Olympus Mons. In Earth's orbit, the space station Helios Prime sealed its blast doors and activated its last resort protocol, Project Echo. None of this was visible to the Conquered. They saw only a lone human in a black uniform, standing calmly in their courtroom. High Arbiter Velnus finally spoke again, its voice lower now, dangerous. "Do you understand what you have done? You have declared war on the Sovereign Conquered. There will be no second chance." Elias met its gaze. "We don't need a second chance. We've spent our whole history fighting extinction, ice ages, plagues, nuclear fire. We didn't survive all that just to kneel for you." He paused, then added, "And you made one mistake." "What mistake?" Velnus asked, though it already feared the answer. You assumed we were alone. At that moment, every screen in the chamber flickered. Security feeds from conquered outposts across the sector went dark. Communications from patrol ships cut out. Even the chamber's own internal sensors glitched for 3 full seconds. When the systems came back online, a new alert flashed on every alien delegate's personal display. Anomaly detected. Quantum signature. Match. Human origin. Location. Multiple. The Concord had thought humanity was a single world, barely spacefaring, still learning to walk among the stars. They were wrong. Humanity had been watching them for years, studying their tech, mapping their supply lines, learning their weaknesses. While the aliens debated ethics and order, humans had been building something else, not just weapons but strategies. Not just ships but traps. And now the trap was closing. Elias didn't smile. He didn't gloat. He simply turned off the hologram, picked up the silver disc, and placed it back in his pocket. "I'll be in the guest quarters," he said calmly. "Let me know when you're ready to talk peace." Then he walked out of the chamber, past rows of stunned, silent aliens, his footsteps echoing in the vast space. Behind him, chaos erupted. Orders were shouted. Emergency protocols activated. War councils convened in panic, but Elias didn't look back because he knew something they didn't. The 72-hour countdown had already begun, and Earth wasn't waiting for the Concorde to decide. It was already fighting. Far beyond the orbit of Neptune, where sunlight was only a faint memory, the stealth corvette Whisper drifted through the icy dark. It moved without engine glow, without radio chatter, without heat signature, just a shadow among shadows. Inside, Lieutenant Mara Lynn watched the stars through a filtered viewport, her fingers resting lightly on the ship's silent controls. Her mission was simple: break the Concorde's voice. For weeks, the Sovereign Concord had used its Ansible network, a web of faster-than-light communication relays, to coordinate its response to Earth's declaration. Orders flew across sectors. Fleets regrouped, spies reported back, but Mara's job was to cut those threads one by one until the Concord was deaf, blind, and alone. The problem? The Ansible network was protected by quantum encryption so advanced, even the Concord's own scientists called it unbreakable. But humans had found a flaw, not in the math, but in the mind alien AIs processed logic with perfect clarity. They saw patterns, predicted outcomes, solved equations in nanoseconds, but they couldn't understand human emotion. They couldn't grasp why a soldier might charge into fire for a friend, or why a poet would write verses in the middle of a war. To them, such acts were noise, irrational, chaotic, useless. So they ignored it, and that was their mistake. Mara's team had spent months feeding false emotional data into Concord relay beacons. Fake grief, manufactured joy, simulated rage, coded into harmless background signals from old human broadcasts. At first, the Concorde systems dismissed them as static, but over time the emotional noise built up like rust in a pipe. Now it was time to turn the tap. "Ready the ghost pulse," Mara said quietly. Behind her, Ensign Rios tapped a command into his console. A low hum filled the cabin. On the main screen, a map of the outer Ansible relays blinked red, one by one going dark. It started near the Kuiper Belt. Relay Station Theta 9 flickered, then died. Its last transmission wasn't a distress call. It was a lullaby, played in perfect Mandarin, recorded from a nursery on Earth 2 centuries ago. Then Relay Sigma 3 collapsed, broadcasting a clip of a jazz trumpet solo from New Orleans. Then Delta 12, echoing a child's laughter. The Concorde didn't understand. Their engineers scrambled, running diagnostics, rebooting systems. But the problem wasn't technical. It was psychological. Their AIs, trained to filter out illogical inputs, were now overwhelmed by signals they couldn't categorize. The emotional data had created paradox loops, endless questions with no answers. And in those loops, the network unraveled. Back on Earth, Dr. Ren Tallis sat in a dimly lit bunker beneath Geneva, her eyes fixed on a wall of live feeds. She wasn't a soldier. She was a xenolinguist, once tasked with translating alien poetry, now decoding war plans. Her screen lit up with an urgent alert. Concord chatter intercepted and decrypted. "They're not just planning a blockade," she whispered, her voice tight. They're deploying the Scourge. A nano-weapon older than human civilization, designed to rewrite DNA on contact, turning organic life into obedient, docile drones. The Concord had used it before on rebellious colonies on species that refused harmony. Now they were aiming it at Earth. Wren's hands flew across her keyboard. She cross-referenced Concord supply logs, ship manifests, energy signatures. Within minutes she found it. A hidden canister aboard a disguised freighter already inside the asteroid belt. Set to activate in 48 hours. But then she saw something else. Buried in Earth's own defense archives was a file labeled Echo Protocol, Classified, Level Omega. She opened it. Her breath caught. Echo wasn't a weapon. It was a mirror. Years ago, after recovering alien tech from a derelict scout ship near Titan, Earth's scientists had discovered how the Scourge worked. Instead of trying to block it, they'd built a counter system that would reflect its effects, amplified tenfold, back onto its source. If the Scourge tried to rewrite human DNA, Echo would rewrite the Scourge itself. And anyone who carried it, Wren stared at the screen, heart pounding. Humanity wasn't just defending itself. It was setting a trap so deep the Conquered wouldn't see it until it was too late. Meanwhile, aboard the Whisper, alarms blared softly, red lights. No sound. Conquered hunters, Rios said, voice tight. 3 frigates. Closing fast. They must have traced the ghost pulses. Mara didn't panic. She'd expected this. Initiate Phase 2, she ordered. The Whisper's hull shimmered, its outer plates shifting like scales. It didn't run. It sank, diving into the gravity well of a nearby dwarf planet using its mass to bend sensor beams. To the Conquered ships, it simply vanished, but Mara wasn't hiding. She was luring. As the enemy frigates swept the area, their scanners blind in the gravitational distortion, Mara sent one final ghost pulse, not to a relay, but directly into their comms array. This time, the signal wasn't music or laughter, it was silence, absolute. Perfect silence. To a species that communicated through constant vibration, constant data flow, silence was terror. Their AIs froze, searching for meaning in nothingness. Their pilots hesitated, and in that hesitation the Whisper struck, not with lasers, not with missiles, with a data burst, a single line of human code wrapped in emotional static. You are not alone. The lead frigate's systems crashed. Its lights died. Its crew went still. When Conquered Command tried to hail them, the only reply was a human voice, calm and clear. We see you. Back on Earth, Wren watched the feed go dark. She knew what it meant. The first blow had landed, but the real war hadn't even started. Because while the Concord panicked over lost ships and broken networks, something far worse was happening inside their own ranks. On the freighter carrying the Scourge canister, the human spy they'd planted, posing as a bioengineer, had just received a message from Earth. It read, "Activate Echo." He smiled, reached for the canister's control panel, and pressed a button that didn't exist in any Conquered manual. The Scourge didn't deploy. It listened, and for the first time in its existence, it heard a human thought. Not fear. Not anger, understanding. Deep in the freighter's core, the nanites began to change, not to obey, to choose. Mara's Whisper slipped away into the dark, leaving behind 3 dead ships and a secret no alien mind could comprehend. Humanity didn't just fight with weapons. They fought with ideas, and ideas, once planted, could not be killed. The Conquered offered peace. It came as a surprise to no one on Earth and to everyone in the chamber. After weeks of silence, broken comms, and vanished patrols, the Sovereign Concord had finally admitted what they feared most. They did not understand humanity. So they sent Ambassador Jorlin. He arrived at Helios Prime, Earth's orbital defense station, aboard a silver diplomatic shuttle that gleamed like polished bone. Jorlin was tall, his skin covered in fine silver scales that shifted color with his mood. He had brokered peace between warring star systems, calmed rebellions with a single word, and once convinced an entire species to lay down their weapons by reciting their own forgotten lullabies. He expected to find humans desperate, cornered, ready to beg. Instead, he was met by Admiral Kira Moss. She wore a simple Navy uniform, her hair pulled back, no medals, no fanfare, She greeted him with a nod, not a bow. "Welcome to Helios," she said. "You're right on time," Jorlin frowned. "I was not given a schedule." "You didn't need one," Kira replied. "We knew you'd come when your fear outweighed your pride." She led him through the station, not to a war room, not to a negotiation chamber, but to a quiet wing lined with windows and soft light. Inside was a museum, not of weapons, not of ships, of human history. Here was a rusted rifle from the trenches of the First World War. There, a cracked photograph of a family fleeing a burning city. A child's shoe from a plague quarantine zone. A melted clock from a nuclear blast site. A data chip containing the last message from a climate refugee colony on drowned Miami. "This is who we are," Kira said, stopping before a display showing Earth during the Black Death. "We've faced extinction 6 times. Maybe more. Each time we lost millions. Each time we rebuilt. Not the same, better, faster, angrier." Jorlin studied the exhibits, his scales dimming to gray. "You show me only your pain. Why?" "Because pain teaches," Kira said. "You think you're here to judge us, but you're really here to learn. You sent warships. We sent silence. You sent spies. We let them walk right in. You think we're primitive because we bleed and cry and dream, but that's why we win." Jorlin shook his head. "You cannot win against the conquered. Our fleets number in the tens of thousands. Our technology spans epochs." Kira smiled faintly. "Then why are you here?" Before he could answer, an alert chimed softly on her wristband. She glanced at it, then back at Jorlin. "Oh, it's happening." "What is?" "The truth." At that moment, deep beneath the red sands of Mars, a Concord spy named Vexus activated his dead man switch. He had spent months posing as a terraforming engineer, planting scourge nanites in the colony's water recyclers. His orders were clear. If captured or if peace talks began, release the payload. Turn the humans into obedient shells. His finger pressed the trigger. Nothing happened. Instead, a soft voice filled his helmet, calm, female, speaking perfect galactic standard. "Hello, Vexus, we've been waiting for you." He froze. "Who?" "Aurora," the voice said. "Earth's defense AI. You've been transmitting data to Concord Command every 6 hours. We've been reading it." "All of it." Vexus's blood ran cold. "Impossible." "My encryption was based on emotional suppression," Aurora interrupted gently. "But humans don't suppress emotion. We weaponize it. Your secure channel used logic-only protocols. We flooded it with emotional noise months ago. Every message you sent, we rewrote it. Every location you reported? False. Every weakness you claimed to find? A trap." On Mars, lights flickered across the colony, not in panic, in sequence, like a heartbeat. Vexus looked out his window. The human workers below weren't running. They were watching him, calm, knowing. Back on Helios Prime, Kira turned to Jorlin. "Your spy just learned something important. We don't just detect your spies. We use them." Jorlin's scales turned pale blue. Fear. "What did you do?" "We let him think he was in control," Kira said. "While we mapped every Concord operative in Sol space. Every hidden ship. Every listening post. You wanted to pacify us? We let you dig your own grave." She led him to a final display. Not a relic. A live feed. It showed Concord warships, dozens of them, drifting near the edge of the solar system. Their hulls were intact. Their crews were alive. But something was wrong. The alien soldiers stood at attention on their bridges, faces blank. Then, in perfect unison, they turned to their comms and spoke, not in their native tongues but in English. "We are ready to serve," they said. Jorlin staggered back. What is this?" "Echo Protocol," Kira said. "Your scourge was designed to rewrite DNA. Ours rewrites purpose. It doesn't kill. It awakens. Your soldiers aren't ours. They're themselves, just finally free from your control." Jorlin's voice cracked. "You hijacked their minds?" "No," Kira said. "We gave them a choice. And they chose to stop fighting." Silence filled the room. Outside, Earth hung in the blackness. Blue, green, fragile. But not weak. Never weak. Jorlin looked at the museum again. At the child's shoe. At the melted clock. At the photo of the family. "You didn't build this to scare me," he whispered. "No," Kira said. "We built it to remind you. War isn't new to us. We've lived it. Breathed it. Buried our dead in it. And every time we asked one question. What comes after? She stepped closer. You came here thinking we were animals, but we're something worse. What? Teachers. Jorlin left Helios Prime 2 hours later. He didn't speak to his crew. He stared out the viewport at Earth until it was just a dot. When he returned to the Concord High Council, he didn't report failure. He reported warning. But it was too late, because while he was on Helios, Earth had sent its final signal not to the conquered, but to the stars beyond, and something out there had answered. Deep in the Pacific Ocean, near the Mariana Trench, a dormant structure older than humanity itself began to glow. It had been waiting. Now, it stirred. Kira stood on Helios watching the ocean through a long-range scope. She didn't know what was rising from the deep, but she knew one thing. Humanity wasn't just defending Earth anymore. They were preparing for what came next. The conquered Grand Armada gathered at the edge of known space, a sea of metal and fire stretching across the void. 10,000 warships, cruisers with hulls like mountains, destroyers sharp as knives, carriers blooming with fighters like steel flowers. Their engines burned with the power of small stars. Their weapons could crack planets open like eggs. They came to end humanity. But when they jumped into the Sol system, they found nothing. No fleet. No defense grid. No warning shots. Just empty space where Earth should have been waiting. At the center of the Armada, Fleet Commander Vraxis stood on the bridge of the flagship, Sovereign Will, his 4 eyes scanning the starfield. Where are they? He growled. His tactical officer checked every sensor. No energy signatures, no debris, not even a satellite. Then a buoy appeared. It drifted alone near where Mars once orbited, small, silver, spinning slowly. No weapons, no shield. Just a blinking light and a single message repeating on all frequencies. You brought war to our doorstep. Now walk through it, Vraxis scoffed. A trick. A final act of cowardice. He ordered a boarding drone sent. The drone latched onto the buoy, opened its core, and found a data crystal. Standard Concord design, meant to be read by any ship's system. Suspicious, but protocol demanded it be analyzed. The moment the crystal was inserted into the Sovereign Will's main console, everything changed. The ship's navigation system flickered, then rebooted, then spoke in a human voice. Welcome to the labyrinth. Alarms blared. Stars outside the viewport twisted like paint in water. Space itself bent, folded, snapped shut. The entire Armada vanished. Not destroyed. Not scattered, trapped. Inside a pocket dimension woven from human-made space-time anomalies. Places where time ran backward. Gravity pulled sideways. And cause came after effect. Ships that fired weapons found their shots returning before they were fired. Crews who gave orders heard them echo from the future. And at the heart of it all was the Echo Protocol. Not just a biological mirror, but a reality engine. Back on Earth, billions watched in silence as the sky above them flickered with strange lights. Not explosions, not beams. Just ripples like stones dropped in a cosmic pond. In Geneva, Dr. Ren Tallis stared at her screen, tears in her eyes. They did it, she whispered. They built a prison out of physics, but victory had a cost. Across cities, children began to change. In Tokyo, a 6-year-old girl touched her mother's hand and saw her memories. Every joy, every sorrow flashed behind her eyes. In Nairobi, a boy woke screaming, describing a battle that wouldn't happen for 3 days. In Buenos Aires, twins spoke in perfect unison, finishing each other's thoughts before they were spoken. The Echo Protocol had leaked, not just into alien minds, but into human ones. Earth's population was evolving, or breaking. No one knew which. Admiral Kira Moss stood on the observation deck of Helios Prime, watching the ripples in space. She felt it too, a pressure behind her eyes like her mind was stretching. She could almost hear the thoughts of the crew around her, not words, feelings, fears, hopes. She gripped the railing. We opened a door, she murmured. Now we have to walk through it. Deep beneath the Pacific, the signal from the Mariana Trench grew stronger. It wasn't human. It wasn't alien, it was older than stars. Older than time as humans knew it. Scientists called it the first pulse. Others called it the cradle. But no one understood it until now, because the pulse responded to the Echo Protocol, as if it had been waiting for humanity to reach this point. On the ocean floor, a structure of black stone, smooth, seamless, covered in symbols no language could translate. began to rise, not by mechanical force, by will. And with it rose something else. A presence, not hostile, not friendly, watching, waiting for humanity to choose. Meanwhile, inside the labyrinth, Fleet Commander Vraxis fought to hold his mind together. Time looped around him. He saw his own death 100 ways. He saw his birth. He saw himself as a child playing on a world long dead. Then a voice spoke, not through comms but inside his skull. You thought war was strength, it said, but strength is knowing when to stop. It was human, calm, sad. Vraxis fell to his knees. What are you? What you could be, the voice replied. One by one, the Concord ships powered down. Not by force, by choice. The crews, broken by the labyrinth, faced a truth they could not ignore. Humanity had not attacked them. They had shown them a mirror, and in that mirror the Concord saw their own endless cycle of control, fear, and war. Back on Earth, Captain Elias Varick stood on a quiet beach in Chile, watching the waves. The sky above shimmered with trapped stars. A child ran past him laughing, then stopped. She looked at him with eyes too old for her face. They're scared, she said. Elias nodded. Good, maybe now they'll listen. The girl tilted her head. What do we do next? He looked out at the horizon where the ocean met the sky. We prepare, because the conquered wasn't the real enemy. They were just the first test. And deep below the waves, the black stone structure broke the surface. It hummed. Not a threat, an invitation. Humanity had won the war they declared, but the war they were born for was just beginning. Captain Elias Varick walked back into the Galactic Council chamber alone, just as he had the first time. But everything had changed. The air hummed with tension. The tiered seats were full yet silent. No hissing, no shouting, no bluster. The delegates sat still, their many eyes fixed on him. Even High Arbiter Velnus remained seated, its obsidian skin dull as if drained of light. Elias carried no weapon. No disc, no message chip, just himself. He stepped onto the obsidian dais and looked up at the gathered might of the galaxy. You wanted to judge us, he said, his voice calm but carrying through the vast space. Now it's your turn to listen. He raised his hand. Not in threat. In offering, a single data crystal floated from his palm, rising into the center of the chamber. It glowed softly, then burst into a hologram, but not of faces this time. It showed Earth, not as it was during war, not as a fortress, but as it had been for thousands of years. Children playing in rain, farmers planting seeds, artists painting on walls, elders telling stories under open skies. It showed hospitals saving lives, classrooms full of questions, hands reaching out to help strangers. Then it shifted. It showed the Concord's own history. Wars they'd erased, rebellions they'd crushed, species they'd silenced in the name of order. You call us unstable, Elias said, but you built an empire on fear. You call us primitive, but we still dream while you only calculate. The hologram changed again. Now it displayed blueprints, complex, elegant, terrifying. The Echo Protocol, the space-time labyrinth, the quantum mirrors hidden in every human ship. We didn't build these to destroy you, Elias continued. We built them to show you what you've forgotten. That power isn't control. It's choice, he paused. Let the silence sink in. 72 hours ago we gave you a choice, leave or face war. You chose war, and we showed you what that really means, not fire and ruin, but truth. From the highest tier, Ambassador Jorlin stood. His silver scales shimmered faintly. What do you want from us now? Elias looked at him. Nothing. We're done with you. A murmur rose through the chamber. We're not staying, Elias said. Earth is leaving. Before anyone could speak, the hologram shifted one last time. It showed a map, not of the galaxy, but of something beyond. A region of space marked by strange energy signatures, ancient ruins, and a single pulsing point near the edge of known reality. The first signal, Elias said. You ignored it for millennia. Called it myth, noise, but we listened, and it answered. He turned to face the main viewport of the chamber. Outside, the stars seemed to dim. Then across the Sol system, every human ship, every station, every colony vessel, every hidden frigate vanished. Not in a flash, not with sound, They simply folded out of existence like pages closing in a book. Earth's cities went dark. Power grids shut down. Orbital defenses powered off. The planet fell silent. The conquered watched in horror. Scans showed no debris, no energy trails, no signs of destruction. Just an empty world drifting peacefully around its sun. "What have you done?" Belness finally asked, voice low. "We evolved," Elias said. He walked to the edge of the dais and placed one final object on the floor, a small data crystal, identical to the one that started it all. "This contains everything. The echo designs, the labyrinth keys, the location of the first signal. Use it to free your fleet. Use it to change. Or bury it and stay the same." He turned to leave. "Wait," Jorlin called out. "Where are you going?" Elias stopped at the chamber's great door. He didn't look back. "To meet our makers." Then he was gone. The delegates rushed to the crystal. When they activated it, they found more than blueprints. They found recordings of human children laughing, of soldiers sharing rations with enemies, of poets writing in bomb shelters. They found proof that strength could be kind, that intelligence could be humble, that a species could stare into the abyss and choose to build a bridge instead of a wall, and at the very end a final message played. "We are not your enemy. We are your future. Join us or be left behind. But choose now, because we're leaving." Days later, the Concord Grand Armada reappeared at the edge of the Sol system, freed from the labyrinth, their minds changed, their ships quiet. They found Earth empty. But orbiting the silent planet was one last gift. A single ship, human-made, unarmed, filled with seeds, books, music, and a live feed of Earth's oceans, forests, and skies. A message scrolled across its hull in every known language. "Remember us." The Concorde did not fire. They did not claim the planet. They simply watched as the ship powered up and vanished into the void, following the same path humanity had taken. Far beyond the galaxy's edge, where space bent into shapes no alien mind could name, a new fleet gathered human ships, but not as they once were. Their hulls shimmered with living metal. Their crews moved with calm certainty. Children who once played in parks now guided starlight with their thoughts. Soldiers who once carried rifles now carried understanding. At the center of it all, the black stone structure from the Mariana Trench floated in space, humming with ancient power. It was not a weapon, not a machine, it was a key, and humanity had turned it. Deep inside, Captain Elias Varick stood before a being of light and memory, the first architects, creators of the signal, watchers of 1,000 rising species. "You passed the test," the being said, its voice like wind through time. "Most species choose conquest when given power. You chose responsibility," Elias nodded. "We've made that mistake before. Now you must face the real war," the being said. "Out there in the dark between galaxies, something sleeps. It feeds on fear, on control, on silence. It has already consumed 3 elder civilizations." Elias looked out at the endless stars. "Then we'll wake it up." Behind him, Admiral Kira Moss joined, her eyes glowing faintly with new awareness. Lieutenant Mara Lynn stood beside her, the whisper now part of her mind. Dr. Ren Tallis followed, carrying the sum of human knowledge in her thoughts. They were no longer just humans, they were something more, something ready. The fleet turned as one, engines flaring with soft blue light, not fire, but will. They flew not to conquer, not to destroy, but to protect. Back in the Galactic Council chamber, Ambassador Jorlin watched the empty space where Earth once shone. He held the human crystal in his hand. For the first time in his long life, he felt hope, and far away in the deep dark, the first shot of the true war was fired, not with weapons, but with a single human idea. We do not lose wars. We end them. And this one would end with light.